If you're wondering if it's possible to travel in 2020, the short answer is yes, but it depends where you want to go. And if you want to see what it looks like to travel in 2020, well, it looks just a little bit like this.
It's not the most comfortable situation.
No, it's not.
But it will keep you safe, and it does keep everyone else safe around you, so it's just something that you kind of have to compromise with.
As most of you know, we just moved from Canada to Kenya in Africa. And if you guys don't know about that, well, I'm gonna link those videos down below, obviously.
So ours was a little bit specific. I don't know if each country requires this, but in order to actually get into Kenya, you have to have a COVID swab within 96 hours of your first flight. So that does take a little bit of planning because you have to make sure a clinic's able to be open. We were lucky in Montreal that we found a clinic and we had guaranteed results within 24 hours.
Yeah.
So we knew that once we booked our flight and we kind of had a feel of how busy the clinic was, we could book with them and got our results, so it timed out perfectly.
Yeah. And if you never did a COVID test, well, it looks a little bit like that.
Woo, that was great.
So it doesn't feel very good, but it's very quick and it's worth it because, it allows you to travel.
Yeah. So the first thing it kind of looks like when we flew to Montreal, as soon as you go in the doors, you have to wash your hands and they do a temperature check right there, just to make sure no fevers, nothing like that.
Yeah.
So after you did your normal things such as check in, put your baggage in, everything like that, when you go through security, before you actually get to the security line, they do a second temperature check just to make sure nobody kind of sneaked in or anything like that. And then you went through security as normal. In the building though, just like every other building, well right now in Canada I believe, so you do have to mask as soon as you go in. So that wasn't shocker to us or anything like that.
As expected, but no shield at that point.
No, it was just the face mask.
Airport-wise, during the trip, we went to 3 different airports and it was obvious that most of the stores and most of the restaurants were actually closed.
Lounges as well. All lounges were closed.
But obviously, we were still able to find some food. Some restaurants are still open. So in regards to the plane itself, we traveled with Qatar Airways, and I have to say that their safety measures were really on point.
Yeah. So as soon as you get in the line to start to board, they hand you a face shield and you have to keep that same face shield through all your flights. So we traveled Qatar the entire way, which was 2 flights. So we were told when we left that you have to keep that same face shield. So even right before you get to the point where you give them your boarding pass and stuff, you have to have this face shield on and the mask. You have to have both. You have to keep it through boarding, your entire flight, except to eat and drink. You're allowed to remove it for your meals and everything like that. And then to disembark as well. You have to keep it on until you fully come out of Qatar Airways, what do you call it? Like their little section in the airport, basically. Anyways, until you come out of that.
The gate.
Your gate.
Yeah.
So then you can take off your face shield, but again, you still have to leave your face mask on.
Yeah. Going back to airports, I have to say that Montreal Airport and Doha Airport in Qatar are both very, very busy normally. And while we were flying, they were completely empty. It looked like apocalyptic.
Oh yeah.
Nobody was there. It felt like we were alone.
Yeah. Like even your duty-free stores, like when we landed in Qatar, there's 2 sections. So one section here and one section all the way there at the end of the airport. This one was completely closed, like not even enough people to have it. We might have passed like 10 people. They were all employees going to the other end of the airport. And then in that end of the airport, I want to say like there was nobody walking through those stores. Like normally you're like everyone's kind of browsing, nobody. And actually, I forgot about that. Our gate was sectioned. We couldn't even reach our gate until a certain time. Yeah. They kind of hoarded people backwards just so that they couldn't roam free through the aisle of the gates. And then when it was about an hour before our plane left, then they opened it up and then they let us go through because I think we were the only flight at that point.
Yeah. And then we finally landed in Nairobi, Kenya. And our experience at the airport was probably much different than what it is normally.
Yeah.
As soon as we stepped out of the airplane, we had to take a bus to the terminal. And then everyone was lined up outside of the terminal. They were kind of filtering people, making sure that they had completed a COVID test prior of leaving their country of origin.
Even then, there was like a little app, so even though you completed your COVID test, before you left, you still had to go on to the website and you filled that out, so I don't really know what
exactly.
was on.
It's just basically your own information, your name, date of birth, where you're from, why you're entering the country, and obviously if you have any symptoms that are COVID related, and if you did complete a COVID test prior of leaving.
Yeah, so that gives you like a little QR code, and basically what you do is, so David had them on his phone, we went up to the lady when it was our turn and she scanned the QR code. She must have seen it was all good to go or something like that. We did another temperature check, and then we were able to go to your normal, what I would say like your customs, your international, go through that side with your passports. So it was more intense. Not gonna lie, at first it's like a little bit intimidating just because well, for me, like it's our first time we've flown during COVID, so you don't necessarily know what to expect. So sometimes I'm like, am I doing this right? Am I not? I trust them to tell me if I'm not. But at the same time, I think they know that not everyone's used to this procedure as well. So it went fairly smoothly, I do have to say.
Yeah. So personally, with all those measures, I have to say that I did feel safe the entire way there, from Montreal to Doha to Kenya. People are very, very good at wearing their mask, washing their hands very often. There's signs everywhere that reminds you of all the procedures. The staff in the plane were also very, very good. They had like, full suit on as well. Not like hazmat suits, but just
like healthcare gowns.
Yeah, exactly, right? And they were very good at like wearing their mask and reminding people if somebody was like taking their mask off and they weren't eating, they were reminded that they had to keep their mask at all time.
That's the other thing too. So our first flight was a 12-hour flight. If you plan to sleep, you have to leave your mask and face shield on. So that took a little bit to get used to, not gonna lie, and it was very awkward at first. But they are strict on that, and I can understand why. I'm just being selfish.
It's really not ideal, but it takes what it takes. And if you want to travel, well, we want you to know that it is possible. But before leaving, you have to do the research. Every country has different procedures, different requirements. I know that, for example, if you want to go to Dubai, as soon as you land, you have to do a second COVID test, go in a hotel, and wait for that result to come back negative before you're allowed to actually leave that hotel.
And some places even require a government hotel 14-day quarantine, like by the government. So like that's a little bit different too, whereas we're lucky enough able to quarantine in our house. So
exactly. And some other countries have zero requirements. So again, do the research before you leave, and well, safe travel.